Damian Nash stared at the ceiling of his sleep lab, watching the monitors flicker with the brainwave patterns of his latest test subject. As the lead researcher at the Somnus Institute, he'd spent countless nights observing people's dreams, trying to unlock the mysteries of human consciousness. Tonight felt different, though. The patterns on his screen didn't match anything he'd seen before. Dr. Nash, his assistant Vernon, called from the observation room. "You need to see this." Damian hurried over, his eyes widening at the neural activity displays. The subject's brain was lighting up in regions that shouldn't be active during REM sleep. More concerning still, similar patterns had appeared in 3 other subjects over the past week. "Wake them up," Damian ordered, running his fingers through his disheveled dark hair. "Something's not right." But before Vernon could reach for the intervention controls, all the monitors went dark. The emergency lights kicked on, bathing the lab in an eerie red glow. "Power failure?" Vernon suggested hopefully. Damian shook his head. The backup generators should have kicked in immediately. He moved to check on their sleeping subject, but stopped short when he noticed a strange shimmer in the air, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. The shimmer coalesced into a tall, willowy figure with iridescent skin that seemed to shift colors in the red emergency lighting. Its large, almond-shaped eyes fixed on Damian with an unsettling intelligence. "We have been watching," the being spoke, its voice resonating directly in Damian's mind. "Your species' dreams. This makes you unique." Vernon collapsed into a chair, his face pale. Damian forced himself to remain standing, though his knees threatened to buckle. "Who are you?" "I am Naira, of the Luminari. We have searched countless worlds for others who dream as we do. Until now, we thought we were alone." Damian's scientific mind kicked into gear, temporarily overriding his fear. "The sleep patterns we've been seeing, that was you?" Naira's skin rippled with patterns of light. "We have been attempting contact through your dream state. It is how we communicate across vast distances. But your minds are different. Resistant. Why not just land a ship and say hello?" Vernon squeaked from his chair. "Our physical form is incompatible with your atmosphere. This projection is temporary. We must find another way to bridge our worlds." Damian glanced at his sleeping test subject, then back at the monitors. "The patterns we've been recording, they're not just sleep activity, are they? They're attempts at communication." "Yes." Naira moved closer, her form flickering slightly. "But we cannot maintain contact for long. We need your help, Damian Nash. Your understanding of human dreams could be the key to establishing lasting communication between our species." "And if I refuse?" Naira's colors darkened slightly. "There are others of my kind who believe your species is too primitive to be worth contacting. They would prefer to simply observe from afar. I believe you deserve more than that. A chance to join the greater community of dreamers among the stars." Damian felt a weight settle onto his shoulders. The choice before him seemed impossible: help an alien species he knew nothing about, or risk humanity being deemed unworthy of contact. But the scientist in him, the part that had always yearned to discover something truly new, had already made the decision. "What do you need me to do?" Naira's form brightened. "First, you must learn to dream as we do. Are you willing to let me into your mind?" Damian swallowed hard but nodded. "For science." "For both our species," Naira corrected, reaching out with a luminescent hand. As her fingers touched his forehead, Damian's world exploded into colors he had no names for. His consciousness expanded, stretching across vast distances. He saw worlds beyond imagination, civilizations built on shared dreams, and the delicate web of thought that connected it all. When he came back to himself, he was lying on one of the lab's observation beds. Vernon hovered nearby, looking concerned. "You were out for almost an hour," his assistant said. Did that really happen?" Damian sat up slowly, his head swimming with alien memories and knowledge. It did. And we have work to do. He looked at the monitors, seeing them with new understanding. We need to modify the equipment to detect quantum neural oscillations. The dreams aren't just in our heads, Vernon. They're gateways. As he began sketching out modifications to their sensors, Damien couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was about to wake up to a very different universe. The real question was, were they ready for what they would find there? The first contact had been made. Now the real work would begin. 2 weeks after the initial contact, Damien's lab had transformed into something barely recognizable as Earth technology. Crystalline structures pulsed with bioluminescent energy, interfacing with modified EEG equipment in ways that defied conventional physics. The quantum resonance is holding steady, Vernon reported, his fingers dancing across multiple holographic displays. The young assistant had adapted to their new reality with surprising enthusiasm, though the dark circles under his eyes betrayed many sleepless nights. Damien nodded, adjusting the neural interface wrapped around his head. Naira, are you receiving? The air shimmered, and the luminary's form appeared, more stable than during their first encounter. The connection is stronger, but still incomplete. Your modifications are innovative. Humans are good at improvising, Damien said with a slight smile. Though I admit, combining your crystal tech with our equipment was more art than science. Art, science, to the luminary, they are one and the same. Naira's skin rippled with patterns that Damien was learning to recognize as amusement. But we must progress faster. Others of my kind grow impatient. Damien frowned. You mentioned opposition before. Just how many of your people disagree with this contact? Naira's colors darkened momentarily. The collective is divided. Some see humanity's potential. Others see only the violence in your dreams, the chaos of your unconscious minds. They fear what might happen if our species truly connected. They're not entirely wrong, Vernon interjected, looking up from his displays. Human history isn't exactly peaceful. No species' history is without darkness, Naira responded. What matters is the capacity to evolve, to dream of better futures and work to achieve them. Damien adjusted some settings on the interface. Well, let's show them what humans can do. Vernon, initiate the group synchronization protocol. Around the lab, 5 volunteers in reclined chairs stirred slightly as the neural interface activated. They had been carefully chosen, a quantum physicist, a linguist, an artist, a philosopher, and a young girl with unusually strong natural empathic abilities. Remember, Damien addressed the volunteers, don't try to control the dream. Let it flow naturally. Think of it like a conversation rather than a broadcast. As the volunteers slipped into synchronized sleep, the crystalline structures began pulsing more rapidly. Naira's form flickered, then stabilized at a new level of clarity. Yes, she breathed, her voice resonating with newfound depth. The connection, it's beautiful. Damien watched the monitors in amazement as patterns of thought and dream energy flowed between human and alien minds. The volunteers' expressions shifted through various emotions, wonder, confusion, joy, fear, as they experienced their first shared dream with the luminary. But something was wrong. The quantum resonance was building too quickly, creating feedback loops in the neural network. One of the crystal structures began to crack. Vernon, power levels. Off the charts. The human minds are amplifying the signal far beyond predicted levels. Naira's form wavered. Too much, too fast, they dream too strongly. Damien rushed to shut down the system, but before he could reach the controls, a burst of energy knocked him backward. The lab plunged into darkness, then light again as the emergency systems engaged. The volunteers were awake, all sitting up in their chairs with expressions of profound shock. The young empath, Rachel, spoke first. They're afraid, she whispered. Not just the ones who oppose contact, all of them. They've never encountered minds like ours before. The quantum physicist nodded. Their consciousness is unified, orderly. Our dreams are chaotic, unpredictable. We overloaded their network just by being ourselves. Naira's form had stabilized, but her colors were muted. Now you understand the challenge. Your minds are powerful, but untamed. To bridge our species, we must find balance between chaos and order. Damien picked himself up, already formulating new approaches. Then we'll find it. Vernon, start analyzing the feedback data. We need to understand exactly what happened. There's something else, Rachel said, her young face unusually serious. While we were connected, I felt something. Other presences, watching. Not all of them were Luminari. Naira's colors shifted to patterns Damien had never seen before. Impossible. We are alone in our sector of space. Not anymore, Rachel insisted. Something else is out there. Something that's very interested in what we're trying to do here. Damien looked at the cracked crystal, then at Naira. Maybe we're not the only ones who dream differently. Maybe this is bigger than just our two species. If that is true, Naira said, then we must succeed in building this bridge. The consequences of failure. Her form flickered ominously. Damien squared his shoulders. Then we'll succeed. Humanity didn't come this far by backing down from challenges. He turned to his team. Let's get to work. We need to rebuild the system, but this time, we'll be ready for the power of human dreams. As they began repairs, Damien couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. Something was stirring in the space between dreams, and humanity's first steps into a larger universe might have awakened forces that neither humans nor Luminari fully understood. The bridge between worlds was more complex than they had imagined, and its construction might reshape the very fabric of reality itself. The headache started 3 days after the failed synchronization attempt. At first, Damien dismissed them as stress, but when Vernon and the volunteers reported similar symptoms, he knew something was wrong. They're getting stronger, Rachel said, rubbing her temples. The young empath had taken to spending more time at the lab, claiming her abilities were somehow sharper there. The other presences, they're not just watching anymore. They're trying to get in. Naira's form appeared without warning, her colors shifting rapidly in what Damien now recognized as extreme agitation. We have detected anomalies in the dream network. Connections forming without our authorization. Something is hijacking our technology. Show me, Damien demanded, pulling up the quantum resonance displays. The patterns had changed, becoming more angular, aggressive. Where the Luminari signatures flowed like water, these new patterns struck like lightning. Vernon pointed to a cluster of data points. Look at this. The unauthorized connections are targeting specific individuals. Everyone who was part of the synchronization experiment. Not just them, Rachel interjected. I can feel others, all over the city. People are having strange dreams, seeing things that aren't there. It's spreading. Damien's blood ran cold. Naira, what aren't you telling us? The Luminari's form flickered, her colors dimming. There were legends. Stories of others who once shared the dream spaces. We called them the Void Dancers. They were said to consume the dreams of entire civilizations, turning them into nightmares. But they were just stories, myths to warn young dreamers. Not myths, Rachel said firmly. They're real, and they're using our connection as a door. As if in response to her words, the lab's crystal structures began to pulse with an sickly purple light. The monitors showed brain-wave patterns spiraling into impossible configurations. They're coming, Rachel whispered, just before her eyes rolled back and she collapsed. Damien caught her before she hit the floor, but immediately staggered as something invaded his mind. Images flooded his consciousness, vast, dark shapes moving between stars, civilizations drowning in their own nightmares, and an ancient hunger that had waited eons for fresh dreams to devour. "Shut it down," he managed to yell, fighting against the alien presence trying to overwhelm his thoughts. Vernon scrambled for the controls, but the system wouldn't respond. The purple light grew stronger, and more people in the lab began to collapse. Through the haze of invasion, Damien saw Naira's form become more solid than ever before. She moved to the central crystal cluster, her colors blazing with determination. "The only way to close a door," she said, her voice resonating with power, "is to have a stronger key." She pressed her luminescent hands against the crystals, and pure white light began to combat the purple glow. Damien felt the invasive presence recoil, but it wasn't enough. Then he remembered something from the first synchronization attempt: human minds, chaotic and untamed, overwhelming the ordered systems of the Luminari. "Vernon," he called to his assistant, who was barely keeping his feet. "Initiate emergency protocol Omega. Full power to all systems." But that could fry everything. "Do it." As Vernon activated the protocol, Damien reached out with his mind, not trying to control or direct the chaos of human consciousness, but simply letting it flow. Around the lab, the other humans seemed to understand instinctively, adding their own mental chaos to the mix. The ordered patterns of Luminari thought merged with the wild creativity of human dreams, creating something entirely new. The purple light wavered, fought back, then began to fade as the combined mental energy of two species proved too chaotic, too unpredictable for the Void Dancers to maintain their grip. Rachel's eyes snapped open, glowing with internal light. "They're running," she announced. "They can't handle the noise we're making." One by one, the unauthorized connections broke. The oppressive presence in their minds retreated, leaving behind a strange mixture of relief and loss. As the crisis passed, Damien turned to Naira, whose form had returned to its usual translucent state. "Those weren't just stories, were they? Your people have fought them before." "Yes," Naira admitted. "The Void Dancers drove us to develop dream-sharing as a defense. We learned to share only simple, controlled thoughts to avoid attracting their attention. But humans..." Her colors shifted to something like wonder. "Your chaotic dreams, the very thing we feared, might be the greatest weapon against them." "Not a weapon," Rachel corrected, sitting up slowly. "A shield. They couldn't understand us, couldn't predict us. Our chaos protected us." Vernon checked the systems, shaking his head in amazement. "The quantum resonance has stabilized at a new frequency. It's like our minds have permanently altered the network." Damien helped Rachel to her feet, his scientist's mind already racing with implications. "So what now? We can't be the only ones they've targeted." "No," Naira agreed. "And now that they know about humanity, they will return with greater force. We must prepare." "Then we'll need more than just preparation," Damien said firmly. "We need an alliance. Humanity and Luminari, chaos and order, working together. Not just to defend against the Void Dancers, but to show them a better way." Rachel smiled, her young face wise beyond her years. "They're afraid of dreaming because they've forgotten how to hope. Maybe we can teach them." As they began planning their next steps, Damien realized that their original goal of building a bridge between species had evolved into something far more important. They weren't just connecting worlds anymore, they were fighting for the right to dream freely. The real question was, how do you fight creatures that live in nightmares while keeping your own dreams intact? The transformation of the Somnus Institute happened practically overnight. What had been a sleep research facility became humanity's first line of defense against an enemy that struck through dreams. Government officials, military leaders, and scientists from around the world crowded into Damien's lab, all trying to understand the threat they faced. "It's not just about defense anymore," Damien explained to the assembled group, standing beside a holographic display of global dream activity. "The Void Dancers are targeting population centers. Every night, more people fall into comas they can't wake from. Their dreams being consumed, Naira added, her form now visible to everyone thanks to modified crystal arrays throughout the facility. The victims become anchors, allowing the void dancers to strengthen their hold on this reality. General Rivera, a stern-faced woman who'd seen her share of conventional warfare, studied the data with narrowed eyes. How do we fight an enemy we can't shoot? We don't, Rachel answered. The young empath had become their strongest asset, her abilities growing stronger as she learned to work with both human and luminary energy. We need to understand them first. They're not just attacking randomly, they're searching for something. Vernon, who had been analyzing pattern data for days without sleep, pulled up a new set of visualizations. She's right. Look at these attack patterns. They're systematic, like they're mapping something in the collective unconscious. Damien felt a chill as realization struck. They're looking for dreamers like Rachel, people with natural abilities to bridge the gap between normal consciousness and whatever realm they inhabit. Which means we can predict their next targets, General Rivera said, military training kicking in. We can set up defenses, prepare dash. The lights flickered, and every screen in the lab filled with swirling purple patterns. Rachel gasped, grabbing Damien's arm. They're here. The attack came not through the crystal arrays or quantum networks, but through the assembled humans themselves. Everyone in the room staggered as foreign thoughts invaded their minds, trying to turn their consciousness against them. But this time, they were ready. Initiate Protocol Dreamcatcher. Damien shouted. Around the room, modified neural interfaces activated, connecting each person to a network that blended human chaos with luminary structure. Naira's form blazed with light as she integrated herself into the defense. Remember your training. Don't fight the chaos, direct it. The military personnel, initially skeptical of dream warfare, now threw themselves into the battle with disciplined fury. Scientists contributed precise, analytical thoughts that cut through the void dancers' attacks like scalpels. And through it all, Rachel moved from person to person, helping them maintain their mental barriers. But the void dancers had learned too. Their attacks were more focused, more precise, seeking out weaknesses in the human luminary defense. One by one, people began to fall. We're losing ground, Vernon called out, monitoring the neural networks. They're adapting to our defenses. Damien looked around the room, seeing the strain on everyone's faces. Then he noticed something odd, the void dancers weren't attacking him directly. They were focusing on everyone else, trying to isolate him. Naira, he called out, they're using our own strategy against us. They're trying to create chaos in our ranks. The luminary's colors pulsed with understanding. Then we must show them true chaos. She turned to Rachel. Young one, are you ready to attempt what we discussed? Rachel nodded, her face pale but determined. I've been practicing. I think I can do it. Before Damien could ask what they meant, Rachel stepped into the center of the room. She removed her neural interface and closed her eyes. Naira's form moved to hover behind her, placing luminescent hands on her shoulders. Everyone, Rachel called out, her voice carrying an otherworldly resonance, drop your defenses. All of them. That's suicide. General Rivera protested. Trust her, Naira commanded. Humans are not meant to be ordered and controlled. Your greatest strength lies in your natural state. One by one, the assembled humans deactivated their neural interfaces. The void dancers' presence surged forward triumphantly, only to meet something they hadn't expected. Raw, unfiltered human consciousness. Rachel stood in the midst of it all, not trying to control or direct the chaos of hundreds of human minds, but rather letting it flow through her like a conduit. Naira's energy merged with hers, providing structure without imposing order. The effect was devastating. The void dancers, used to dealing with either ordered thoughts or directed chaos, found themselves drowning in a sea of pure human imagination. Dreams, fears, hopes, memories, all flowing freely, too complex and interconnected to corrupt or consume. "They're retreating," Vernon announced, watching the monitors in amazement. "The attack patterns are breaking down." But Rachel wasn't finished. With Naira's help, she reached out to the coma victims across the city, showing them how to break free of the Void Dancer's control. One by one, they began to wake up. As the attack subsided, Rachel collapsed, caught by both Damien and Naira's energy. She smiled weakly. "Did we win?" "For now," Damien said, helping her to a chair. "But they'll be back." General Rivera stepped forward, her military bearing softened by newfound respect. "Then we'll be ready. This facility just became humanity's most important defense installation. Whatever you need, you'll have it." As the room buzzed with activity, Damien pulled Naira aside. "You knew this would work, didn't you? You and Rachel had been planning it." "We suspected," Naira admitted, her colors showing both pride and concern. "But we underestimated how powerful the effect would be. Humanity's natural state of consciousness is extraordinary." "And dangerous," Damien added, watching Rachel being checked by medical staff. "We're not ready to maintain that kind of unfiltered connection for long." "No," Naira agreed. "But perhaps we don't need to. Perhaps the key is not in maintaining chaos or imposing order, but in learning to dance between the two." As Damien looked around at humans and Luminari working together, he realized they had stumbled upon something unprecedented, a true synthesis of two fundamentally different ways of thinking and dreaming. The Void Dancers had meant to destroy them, but instead, they had forced an evolution. The real question was, what would this new dream-sharing humanity evolve into?